connected except for Tierney and Hanky. And this is one public comment.
Okay.
I think that's the only one we have.
Okay, just double check, make sure you're signed in.
Do some things at night.
Looks good.
You're in there.
Good evening. Today is Tuesday, June 11th. It is 6:30 PM. We are at, or you are at, Common Council of the City of Wausau. Please join me at the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk call roll, please?
We have 11 voting members present. Sure.
All right, we have one proclamation tonight, and we will be presenting this to the women's community. And Tiffany, their Transitional Living Program Coordinator, will be here to present this. So I'm going to read it, and then I'll have you, I'll hand it off and give you the mic. It's a proclamation. Whereas Wausau's seniors are valued members of society, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure they live safely and with dignity. And abuse of elder people is a tragedy inflicted on vulnerable seniors and an ever-increasing problem in today's society that crosses all societal economic boundaries. Wausau seniors are guaranteed that they will be treated with respect, dignity, and to enable them to continue to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and important and active members of this community. And whereas we are all responsible for building safer communities for Wausau seniors, and whereas the well-being of Wausau seniors is in the interest of all and future, further adds to the well-being of Wausau's communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Doug Denny, Mayor of the City of Wausau, do hereby proclaim June 15th, 2024 as Elder Abuse Awareness Day in the City of Wausau, State of Wisconsin. And I commend this observance to all citizens to celebrate the accomplishments of Wausau seniors. Tiffany.
If you could go to the microphone.
Okay. Hi, my name's Tiffany. So we help elders 60 and above. We have support groups and specific resources to help them, especially with financial burden. And elder abuse is a growing problem in our community, which have physical abuse and sexual abuse and financial abuse that we are seeing. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Tiffany, and the women's community. Up next, we have one pre-registered citizen for matter appearing on the agenda for public comment, and that would be Jim Force. Please state your name and address and your comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Force, 515 Franklin Street. I didn't expect to be on this soon. I thought maybe something would come up that we could comment on. But I just, I wanted to comment on the proposal that I have seen to convert the parallel parking on 4th Street to angle parking to accommodate the WISE, or some of the WISE parking needs. No problem with the plan, except a couple of questions. One would be, who is paying for that? The paperwork that I've seen shows it as revenue neutral, but I wonder who is going to be doing the concrete work and the engineering work, and then finally the maintenance work. There's also a new sidewalk proposed. There are also some trees that are, plans are to take down some trees. So someone is going to have to pay for that, and I would want the council to be aware of any costs incurring to the city and the city taxpayers for that project. Second point, the issue of the Y in Yawkey Park goes back probably 50 years. I can recall several meetings over a long period of time regarding the impact of development on Yawkey Park. And it appears that the proposal to put angled parking on 4th would have some additional impacts on Yawkey Park, trees and area being reduced. And I and others are wondering what Yawkey Park might look like after this project is completed. A couple of suggestions. I don't know if the Park Department has had an opportunity to look at the plans and make comments, and I'm not aware of any public opportunity to also look at the plans and ask questions and justify in their minds that it's a project that they are okay with. So those are my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, up next is a consent agenda, and I've had a request to pull 2 of these items. We will be pulling for normal consideration is filed 240603, the resolution on the dedication of 404 Franklin, and then 24-0606, the resolution approving the sale of 1717 Arlington Lane. That will be pulled for normal consideration. So up next then would be the consent agenda. Is there any other items that we're concerned with? And you may vote. We will be looking for a motion, and we have from Neil, second by Lukens.
Excuse me. I think a couple of us are having errors with the Open Meetings app. It says Alexander Hamilton is speaking, and next is John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt. And I'm in queue for 88th, and I can't press my buttons. I've restarted my phone and everything, so.
I got motion amended.
Can you go to the vote? Can you just go to the next?
If I do this, now can you vote?
There you go.
Okay. After I told IT we did not need assistance tonight.
I don't have voting buttons on mine even.
Oh, yours is. One's.
There you go.
Okay, now can you vote? Now were you able to? Okay. Okay, consent agenda passes 11-0.
Now we'll go back to the same old screen again.
So we're still having trouble?
Yeah, yeah.
I think the big issue will be if they have to request to speak. We might just have to, the other voting stuff seems to
Raise your
work.
hand if.
Well, I'm showing Elisa Rasmussen, Sarah Watson. What am I showing here? You're number 1 to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion by Rasmussen. Okay, stand by.
And
Which one are we taking first?
the 240603. Alder Watson, did you intend to press your amend button? No? Okay. Okay, let me come and see.
Please. Okay.
ability to motion and amend. Okay,
Do we want to just go
I think we can.
manual, or you want to? Okay, up next, we are going to take the item we took from the consent agenda. It's the 240603 joint resolution accepting dedication of right-of-way at 404 Franklin Street. And I have a motion from Rasmussen, second by Watson. Is that correct? And we have request to speak by Rasmussen.
Thank you. So this particular item is an important component of the plan to expand services offered at the landing for our seniors. And I think that we all have been active in supporting the development of the landing, the expansion of the Y facility in prior years, to make sure that those active lifestyle activities for our seniors exist and that they can access those services. The landing has been wildly successful for our seniors, and the need to grow that operation has come. A few months ago, the Plan Commission had an item before it to facilitate parking and that expansion on land that the Y already owns. And based on opposition from the neighborhood and folks that didn't want to see a building torn down that was not historic, they were sent back to the drawing board to work with our staff and come up with an alternative. This is that alternative. So that said, the other benefit, there is a public benefit to angled parking on 4th Street. We have a need for additional street parking during event nights. When the Grand is active, when concert night is going on the 400 block, when events are happening, downtown parking spaces are full. Angle parking on low-volume streets allows for a higher volume of cars to park safely, and they can enter and exit because the adjacent traffic travels at low speed. So our staff has looked at this, and the recommendation for the alternative is that we allow these modifications to happen on 4th Street. It pushes the sidewalk back, but still maintains a sidewalk in the public right-of-way, negates the boulevard, which can happen. But I think that this also creates a win-win situation both for the public that is attending things downtown separate from the landing, and it also accommodates access for the landing where people get the parking they need and they don't necessarily have to cross the street to get there. So, I think if we were unwilling to consider in the Plan Commission their efforts on land they already owned, that it's fair that we consider this plan as an alternative because we sent them back asking for an alternative. So I intend to support this, and I hope that the rest of us will as well. Thank you.
Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. Since the larger issue was raised, especially by Mr. Forrest, I think that the larger issue of 4th Street and the parking and the effect that we're not voting on that this evening, but I think that the Park and Recreation Committee of the City Council should seriously take a look at what's happening to Yawkey Park. I think that we need to look at the trees, but I think that this it is becoming, as I understand it, invasive into Yawkey Park. And that's not on the agenda tonight, but I think that the Park Committee should certainly look at it, and I would want them to weigh in on it, as well as exactly what 4th Street will now look like with regard to the plans that are being put forth. With regard to the specific issue this evening, I most likely will vote for it, but I think that there's a larger issue that was raised specifically by Mr. Forrest with regard to Yawkey Park and the 4th Street. So I look for some work on the Park Committee to study this, and perhaps to have a public hearing so that specifically the neighborhood can become involved with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. And we appear to have a motion to amend.
Did you intend to do that, Alder McElhaney? Okay, we'll ignore that.
We're going to kill that. All right. Alder Tierney is up next. Oh, hold on, Lou? So
I don't think they all work anymore.
they don't all work. So here's what we'll do is I've got Alder Tierney, and I'll put Alder Larson next. Thank you, Alder Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo Alder Gisselman's concerns about taking land from Yawkey Park. With a lot of the expansion that's being done, a lot of green space is being taken away, and Yawkey Park is a beautiful park downtown. And I have to go along with that, questions about the proposed parking, which I know is not on the agenda tonight, but it all kind of ties in together. But I do have concerns about continuing to take land from green space areas. And I, too, would like public input from the neighborhood that it's going to affect the most. Thank you.
Thank you. And without a light, we have Alder Larson.
Yeah, I can't, there's nothing to push
You're
here.
fine, just give us that nod.
I have to echo what Alder Rasmussen said. You know, the landing is not gonna, it's a tremendous asset to this community and to people it serves. And it's not going to be able to expand if we can't expand parking. It's just plain and simple as that. I support this. I echo what Alder Rasmussen said, that this is a Plan B because the Plan A, the neighborhood rejected, and they didn't want a building that was not really a historic building not torn down, you know? So, I mean, I think this is a win-win situation for the community, and I will be certainly supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. And it looks like we have Alder Killian.
I understand that the dedication of the Franklin parcel for right-of-way is budget neutral, but as Mr. Forrest brought up and as Council Gisselman brought up, I think there will be extenuating circumstances for the city to recognize. They will recognize cost, and I do believe that there should be public input from the neighborhood as well. So those are things that need to be considered.
Thank you. Any other speakers to this subject? Alder Tierney.
And as Lou stated, he feels that, the landing is a tremendous asset. So are our parks. And our parks are a tremendous asset to the city. And, I guess I am concerned about that. And I am also concerned about the additional cost to the city in terms of maintaining, in terms of engineering. And what I've read is that with this additional angle parking, that the Y would like the city to also pitch in towards that because of.
Well, that is not on the
But I know
agenda
that's
for
not on the
tonight.
agenda, but it all kind of ties in together. So, I mean, when you're talking about cost of this project, there's additional costs to be taken into consideration.
If those come before us, you will see those, and I can appreciate the comment. Without further comment, we have a motion and a second to accept the joint resolution accepting dedication right away at 404 Franklin Street.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 9-2.
Up next is the second item that we pulled from the consent agenda. That's 240606, resolution from Economic Development approving the sale of 1717 Arlington Lane by the City of Wausau to Godorsey Investment. And I have a motion from Henke, second by Lukens. And any comments, questions? Alder Killian.
I believe new information has arisen regarding this property. I clearly have no objection to selling this to Mr. Godorsky, but I just would like to be certain that we as a city are functioning with correct information and following proper procedures. When this came to committee, I was told that the parcel was landlocked, and that is not accurate information. The parcel has a 30-foot ingress egress. Therefore, I don't believe it is considered landlocked. And I would like Attorney Jacobson, if she would be kind enough to let us know if she feels that we legally followed appropriate procedure when we brought this forth.
Thank you. May I, Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
All right, and am I talking too loud?
You're good.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to apologize in advance. My ears are blocked by fluid from a virus that I caught 2 weeks ago, and I am essentially deaf, so I can't regulate my voice. So here's my opinion on this, and I think it'll come to a good conclusion. So factually, the city-owned parcel is not landlocked, in my opinion, from a legal standpoint, a statement that was asserted at the ED committee meeting. It is vacant, but according to the city assessor, it has approximately 2.2 acres of swamp and wasteland, 2.26 acres of forest lands, and 2.24 acres that's commercially zoned and buildable. The city acquired the property by warranty deed from Gerald Dvorak on February 19, 1993. The deed contains a legal description for the west 30 feet of the parcel to be used for ingress and egress. Then I looked at Wausau Municipal Code Chapter 3.12 contains our procedure for the sale of city-owned property, which was recently changed by council with a resolution coming from the Economic Development Committee, file number 240316, which passed on March 26th of 2024, and approved clarifications to the City of Wausau's property disposition program for redevelopment purposes, which was originally adopted on April 16th of 2015, and provided that the ED committee will consider sales to the private sector for commercial redevelopment and will follow an RFP process in offering to sell larger developable properties acquired for commercial or residential redevelopment. And vacant, unbuildable lots may be sold outright to adjoining property owners with the value to be set by the city assessor without following the procedures in the ordinance. The actual policy, then, which is lesser than the ordinance, which was adopted by the resolution, states that the city will offer larger developable properties through an RFP process approved through the Economic Development Committee. It goes on to say that such projects will consist of more than a 4-unit non-owner occupied housing development or other type of commercial or mixed-use development. It secondarily states that in the case of an adjoining property owner wishing to join the vacant lot to their existing property, the lot can be sold outright if the property was deemed undesirable to redevelop. So compare the policy which says the property's deemed by whom I don't know, undesirable to redevelop, to the ordinance which calls it an unbuildable lot. The property value is to be determined by the assessment department. So at that point, I would have advised an RFP process be followed were it not for the development agreement that was located and which I provided to all of you, which was dated October 9th of 2013. It doesn't appear to have been recorded. I was not able to find the authorizing resolution, and it begins with notes, which are rather interesting, but which read sort of akin to whereas clauses, which necessarily were folded into the actual clauses of the contract. And it does state that the developer, which is Mr. Godorsky, but the entity was called 1703, so I'm just going to refer to it as 1703. The developer shall market the 4 sites, that's the 3 the developer owns, and the city site, as one larger site. Developer agrees to openly communicate and coordinate in good faith with the city as it relates to any potential offers to purchase regarding the city property. For example, the purchaser's name, the type of business, and type of development. That's under 4A. 4B says if 1703 presents a potential buyer to the city for the city property, The city shall indicate within 30 days if the potential buyer is acceptable to the city. The agreement, however, is silent as to how the purchase price will be determined. The city assessor has weighed in quite a bit and has advised that his estimate of value would not change, as the parcel doesn't have any road frontage from a main arterial, and the 30-foot easement is presently unimproved with access through a field, and accessibility and visibility is inferior to 2 other commercial sales that have recently occurred on Merrill Avenue and County Road U. So looking at those 3 recent commercial sales and making adjustments for the relative differences, he stated this property would have a market range value of $152,800 to $205,400. Therefore, I think the contract with 1703 trumps these other considerations, and I would expect that the developer, as the city, is expecting communications between the 2 parties and action taken in good faith. So the agreement contemplates the marketing by 1703 of all 4 parcels as one larger site, which I think really prevents us from selling it to anyone but the developer under this contractual agreement. The city could sell the parcel now or wait until any potential offers to purchase are brought to the city by the developer. And if the city chooses to sell to the developer 1703 now without a potential purchaser coming forward with a price and a plan or whatever, you can determine how you will set that sale price, either in the range suggested by the city assessor, or an appraisal is another fairly good independent tool that can be used to justify to the taxpayer the price at which you've sold city-owned property. So thank you for listening to all of that. Do you have any questions?
Based on all of that information, which is quite a bit, did we follow proper procedure? Or should this be brought back to committee? Do you feel like
I think
it
we're
was
following proper procedure in that we have a contractual commitment to the developer to allow him to market this site along with his 3 other sites as one large development. What I don't know is if there's a potential purchaser or he just came forward and wanted to purchase that parcel now. So that's why I'm telling you, now you can decide, yes, we'll sell it now, or no, we won't. And if we do, here's how we want to set the sales price or determine it, although I think the committee recommended $182,000, which is in the range the city assessor recommended.
so normally with a parcel, just because of the development agreement, we can't say that we should put out an RFP or get an appraisal?
I think that would be acting in bad faith. I would not
Okay.
recommend risking doing that in this situation because of the existence of the development agreement.
Thank you, Ms. Jacobson.
Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. This actually is partially in my area, and I think partially in Sarah's area, this particular area. I was here when the development agreement was created in 2013, and there was a significant effort made between the city and Gdorsey to co-market those sites for large projects. And so whether there was collaborative marketing happening, there was partnership between the Economic Development Committee, the council at the time, and 1703. And you'll recall, if you go out there, there is large retaining wall out there that levels that site and made that ready for growth and development so that those sites could be offered and be buildable. There was a significant change in grade between Westwood Drive and the highway before that all went in. And so that infrastructure was invested in to make those sites ready for co-marketing. And so that partnership was forged, and that development agreement came out of that effort. In fact, I think at some point the city was even helping with either the cost or the logistics of the installation of that retaining wall. So, there was always, it was always to be either a joint effort or that the site we had was to be coupled with the ones that Gdorsey already had to make, one large buildable area and not just reserve a strip for ourselves to do something different. It's visible from the highway, and the goal was to have all of them be visible and accessible, either from the highway or Westwood Drive or both. So I think it makes sense now that this parcel be combinable with what they already have and put the marketing and the development under the purview of one party without having them try to operate as a private sector entity, putting something up for offering or sale, and then to always have us in tow. You know, because we really, I mean, to just own the strip that we likely will not develop for any larger purpose, that really acts as a boat anchor on a different project that the private sector may find on its own. I feel like we need to divest ourselves of the piece, let it go, and then put it in the private sector's hands to create something that is really good there. So I plan to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Hanky.
Thank you. I had a question for Randy, if he doesn't mind.
Thank you, Alder.
Hey, so you already answered it for me, but just so everyone else knows, when we go to develop property in the business department or business park, what do we charge per acre there?
Yeah, so our standard price in the business campus is $12,500 per developable acre. So this is significantly more than that, based on the policy that we had and what we were interpreting, going through under the notes of this being a vacant parcel adjoining.
Thank you. So my fear now is if we go for an RFP, everyone's going to come back with $82,000 and we're going to be out another $100,000, and apparently that's a big deal. So I'm going to support this sale. Thank you.
Any other commenters not on buttons? With a motion and a second to accept the sale of 1717 Arlington Lane to Gadorzi.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 10-1.
Okay, up next is the mayor's appointments, and in the appointments, there's one for historic and then one for Alder Gisselman to the CIP committee. I would take a motion to accept the mayor's appointments. We have a motion from Watson, second by Rasmussen. And we may vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11-0.
And up next is file number 240514 from Economic Development. It's the vetoed resolution approving the authorization for a request for proposal for the North Riverfront redevelopment plan. It failed 2-2 in committee, and it passed 7-4 at the last council meeting. And since this is the first time in a long time we've had a veto, I may just ask the city attorney or the clerk to verify how this is going to go. But I would say, just on a housekeeping note, I think this, when it was vetoed, there was a press release that went out and the council was not included in that. I don't know what the procedure should be, but I do believe council should have gotten notified at that point, or at the point it was posted in the meeting notes if it wasn't noted, or if it wasn't press released. So I would ask the parliamentarian to give us just a quick, and my understanding is that this will be essentially a reconsideration. And if you would like, I can summarize my reasons for the veto, but if you could just confirm so everybody knows.
Thank you, Mayor. The resolution is right on the back in the packet, or the page right after your, the veto, takes up one page, and then the resolution that passed on, or was approved on May 28th of 2024 is just right back before you as it was. So it would appear just like any other resolution in the packet. You'd take a first and a second discussion, and then you'd take a revote. And under your council rules, to override a veto requires a 2/3 vote of all members present, which will be 8 of the 11 of you.
Okay, and normally I would speak last year, but since I'm the one who brought this through veto, I will just give you my 2 cents worth up front, summarizing what I've already talked about. And, you know, I think unlike what it was presented in the media, this is not a us against staff scenario. It's potentially a disagreement with the staff recommendation, but is not some sort of nefarious act. And I think it's fair, really, to evaluate priorities at any time during the year on a budget, especially in the mid-year. Here we are. We had a significant event, which was the citywide market-driven, state statute mandated property valuations that have put residents, given residents concern about what's going to happen in these inflationary times. What's going to happen to their taxes? Is the city spending responsibly? There's some things we can't control, and inflation is one. Interest rates are another. City owns a lot of land out there that could be developed, and I think if we start looking at opportunities, there are plenty of them out there. We just processed one here tonight where we sold a piece of property that has been off the tax roll since 1993. It has not drawn a nickel since 1993, and it's cost us money. Simple for sale sign in key locations could sell that property. So we own land that can be developed. This kind of falls into priorities and maybe low-hanging fruit. So we should make sure that any area that we have is properly zoned. The lands can be put up for sale. Developers have ideas. Mr. Godorsky has ideas. They can put with their own financing, and even if we sell at a discount, getting property back on the tax rolls, I think, at fair market value can help our financial picture here tremendously. So those are my thoughts outside of what I already put in here under spending, priorities, budget, and other commitments that we have. So I'll leave it at that and then open up to comment. Looks like we have some comments. Let's start with, and we have Alder Larson.
You will be after Alder Lukens.
All right, Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. So obviously, in the last week or so, much has been made of the action and the veto, but I think that what this comes down to really is the promises that we made as a body to the public when we assembled riverfront parcels. We've been assembling riverfront parcels for a good decade now. And the agreement that we made with the public when we made those investments was that we would redevelop those lands and return them to taxable status, return them to a higher and better land use, so that we could get returns on those investments that the public made, both for public amenities and for tax-generating properties. The longer we wait to plan for those and the longer we wait to realize those investments, the more we risk creating a situation where the relevant TID district is underperforming or not performing to its maximum capability. That then starts to create an impact to all of the other taxing jurisdictions that have approved those TID plans and made those joint investments with us. So I think we have to be mindful of the fact that good planning matters. Solutions could be found for the athletic park parking situation through this process. Getting proposals does not equate to spending dollars. There is nothing that says we are required to spend $100,000. That's what we have in the budget. If the price tags seem too high when the quotes come in, we just don't buy one. So that's our decision to make in the council. And we have to own the results of that voting action. If we decide to take on that responsibility and spend those dollars, we are answerable to the public for those dollars. But ultimately, that decision should rest with us. And that one thing we have to keep at the top of our mind is really maximizing the performance that we've promised the public that we would generate there. There is a lot of opportunity to be had on the North Riverfront beyond Wassa Chemical. I know there's concerns about testing needs and remediation on Wassa Chemical. There is many, many other sites, all of which are bringing us no money right now, that we could focus on first. But land use planning and the placement of the appropriate infrastructure, that matters. And those projects and the associated placement of those items and the borrowing for it, that all happens on a 5 to 7 year schedule. So we can't afford to wait 5 to 7 years and then start the process. If we run up against the end of the expenditure period for the relevant TID or the end of the TID life itself, that's a problem. And it's not just a problem for us, it's a problem for our taxpayers, and it's a problem for the other 3 taxing jurisdictions that when they approve the TID investments, put their faith in us. I just came off of months serving on the county's TID task force. And one of the results of the county TID task force effort is advocacy on their part as one of our taxing partners to request that all municipalities in Marathon County that are utilizing TID as a development tool, that we all work overtime to make sure that we are maximizing the value generated in those districts, and that we are looking for positive performance, not stagnation, not negative performance, and that we're looking to create enough opportunity that we can generate a profitable on-time or early closure. Those requests make sense. There's nothing they're asking us to do that's above and beyond. They're just asking us to use the tool responsibly and maximize the benefits for everyone. And so proper planning is the start of that. And I feel like we need to get the plan going, at least get the quotes, figure out what these places would charge to do this work for us. When those proposals come in, if we don't like the costs, then we have to make another decision. But getting the proposals doesn't cost anything. And in terms of staff time, that work is already done because the RFP is in these packets that we have. So it's not like we need a ton of staff hours anymore. They've already done their work. We just need to green light the work. So my plan is to vote the same way I did the first time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Neal.
I think I'm next.
Sorry, Alder Watson.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm glad you addressed the issue about not being notified of the veto earlier. I mean, I heard about it from an article, so I'm glad that from future this will be addressed, because I know we're all working together for the same goals, and we have, just the right path for the city in mind. I mean, that's what our goals are. So I sort of wanted to address like each of the 4 items from the veto. So the spending, I know tax implications for our upcoming budget are on everybody's mind. I get a lot of emails about those. But just because our revaluations have gone up doesn't necessarily mean our taxes are going to go up as well. It could just be a shift of liability, right? And really, it's important to be participatory in our tax process and our budget process. So I know when I was on finance, there would be a lot of crickets in the audience during budget workshops, and I really would call to action most citizens to come in and really actively participate in this fall when we do reevaluate that budget, because that's what's going to impact your taxes. So with priorities too, I know the mayor mentioned that, and I know we do have other parcels on the river that we could develop. That other part where we did have a bidder and they did end up pulling out for reconsideration due to financial issues, but maybe we put that parcel in this plan and see how that, property just south of WOW could be integrated into our plan. The mall isn't really in our wheelhouse anymore. It's Waz's property, and I do remember seeing a very detailed plan that they had done. And I'm sure they probably hired a contractor to help them put that together. So I think it's a very valuable tool for them to use. For the budget, I know TID 3 does close in 2031, and it seems like our last expenditures are going to be about September 1st of 2026. So I think that's really important to get on and do these expenditures now, because TID money that's sort of saved and generated while the TID's open is supposed to be to help the city for those expenses with the expansion of public services that are needed. So if we don't use those funds to expand and really plan for the services that we're going to be needing for these areas, we're not really using the TID money for its fullest potential. And I mean, when considering like demolition of the Wausau Chemical Building or the remediation that needs to take place, I mean, I think this plan could help us have maybe different action. Maybe we don't have to demo the whole thing. Maybe there's another option. And I absolutely agree that we should have something more focused on parking in that area, to fulfill our commitment to athletic field. And maybe this proposal will help give us new ideas. Another thing that sort of came up in my reading on some of the suggestions that people are talking about with this is that we would be disingenuous if we called for proposals and then had no intention of accepting any. But I don't agree with that for a lot of reasons. Like, I think if a proposal comes in and it's very good, I'm going to vote to approve it. So I'm not being disingenuous. I'm really calling for proposals. Also, companies that do this type of work are used to this kind of thing. They do proposals all the time. They get some, they don't get some. So this is sort of how that market works. and they expect that. Also, I know there was some talk about having this done in-house, and although I know we have very smart and competent professionals in our community development office, very, very smart, but I think it has a very high opportunity cost if we would refocus them to this project. They have a lot of other duties to perform, and I think it would pull them away from those, and we might miss out on opportunities. I mean, why wouldn't we want somebody that actually specializes in this type of plan to do it for us? I know I dye my hair. It's not naturally blue, right? But if I would do it myself, it would take me hundreds more hours than a professional, plus it would probably be 100 times worse. So I hire a professional, right? And that leaves me time to do other things like send emails or, grade papers, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, putting the focus on people who specialize in this stuff is really important. And so finally, I don't really think TID money is play money. I see it as real money that's going to help our community. And I know, and I think everyone on City Council knows that the financial decisions we make are really important to our constituents because they impact their budgets just like they impact ours. But we do have to be forward-looking. We have to balance the health and needs of our current taxpayers with our future taxpayers because this is going to impact them as well. And so planning is the key. To quote Socrates, I had to put a quote in here, by far the greatest and most admirable form of wisdom is that needed to plan and beautify cities and human communities. So a plan is a place that we facilitate these decisions and avoid last-minute costly decisions that could really cost us a lot of money. So the more time we plan, the more responsive we can be to price changes. We can forecast. I mean, it's not like looking in a crystal ball. Who knows what's going to happen? But it can help us make a lot more educated decisions going forward. So because of that, I'm going to continue to vote in the way I did last time. So thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, we have coming up Neal, McElhaney, Gisselman, Lukens, Larson, then Henke, Tierney. Alder Neal.
Thank you. Well, we have 11 alders here tasked with making policy and setting budgets for the city. In my years on council, I've seen hundreds of votes, ranging on a whole array of issues, some of them, really hotly contested, some of them very controversial. And, the votes have ranged from unanimous to a slim 6-5 decision. I've often been on the losing side, disappointed on votes that I really fought hard for. Happens. But, in my previous 8 years on council, what I've always seen is acceptance of our voting results. We've all respected our roles as alders and moved on to the next issues of the day. Now we've seen a 7-4 council vote vetoed. The resolution in question was not a direct spending measure or vital question of public safety. It was simply to send out a request for proposals for specialized consulting services. Any respondents would have to provide info like their credentials, examples of their work, deliverables, cost estimates, timelines, and the like. We would then review responses and consider accepting or rejecting them. Even if we rejected all responses, we likely would have received some valuable information specific to the North Riverfront. That info would also be of interest to potential developers, I'm sure. The funds mentioned in the RFP are tied to TID 3 and will remain there even if this veto stands. The money's not going anywhere else. It will be spent someday on some project or other tied to TID 3. Now, the stated reasons for the veto include references to other potential projects, and we do need to pursue those opportunities too. But it's likely those would be simpler, with shorter timelines. We might see a new project breaking ground next year or the year after. Sure. The North Riverfront planning area, though, is much larger in scope. Many more specifics to consider. This will take years, but we need to start the ball rolling now. There's no real reason to delay, and it's only be to our disservice if we do. This veto basically says we don't want information. We don't want to work toward the future of this important stretch of city-owned property and the surrounding neighborhood. We don't want to inform potential developers about investment opportunities and infrastructure plans along our riverfront. We want that land to sit vacant indefinitely, offering no taxable value to the city. Now, tonight, we will vote again on this RFP resolution, but we're also voting on something more fundamental to our roles as alders, I think. We voted 7-4 to issue the RFP. Now we need at least 8 votes to not only release the RFP, but also to protect this body from being deemed irrelevant. If this test rocket veto stands, then we can expect to see vetoes time and again. If we decide collectively that a simple majority of council voting is just a speed bump for the mayor to roll over, then we abandon our collective duty. If we accept an override of a clear majority on council, then we no longer adhere to the spirit of collegiality and self-determination as a body. So I'm not just hoping for an 8-vote supermajority to override this veto. I'm really looking for a statement that we won't accept random attacks on this body's authority and autonomy. Regardless of how some may feel about this specific RFP resolution, we're setting a precedent tonight that goes beyond that simple question. We're voting on our trust in each other and the process that we as a group are here to uphold. So I will continue voting as I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder McElhaney.
Thank you. I voted against this, and I have some specific reasons. I am not anti-development. I'm not anti-consultant. I appreciate that, and I appreciate that we absolutely need to get tax base on the North Riverfront and everywhere else we can. We know the budget pitfalls that we have coming up with the reevaluation and the water bills and all of the other outside inflationary pressures on our residents. I agree with all of that. But I also have to look through the lens of why now? And here's my reasoning. I too talked to staff, and this isn't a TID 3 expense. Also in TID 3 is Short Street that needs to be done, taking down of the parking ramp, McIndoe Road work. Future needs include, we can't forget that we have lead pipe removal that's going on now, and when that went through, there was at least $2 million that was in, that we would have to find money for. So we have that, which could be a TID 3 expense. The possible demolition of the water plant due to break-in, that's another TID 3 expense. That would take off the burden of the utility to pay for that demolition, which would also relieve pressure on our utility, which is another thing most people have heard about is water bills. Now, I have to weigh that. I have to look forward and say, okay, there's not that much money in TID 3. What these projects are projects that are in the works that have to be done. Would it be better if we pause this, do whatever work we can do locally, and then go ahead next year and see how these other projects go? I don't want to put money into consultancy and then come back and we'll have to borrow money for any of these other projects because TID 3 doesn't have the money. Because that's my concern. So that is why I am going to continue my vote against this. It's not, against development. And I've heard the arguments of this isn't, we are not voting to approve of a RFP. I absolutely agree with that. But I don't want to say, I have no intention of voting for a RFP that comes in, a proposal this year, but I'll vote for it anyway because I want to see what they're going to do for free. I personally don't want to do that, and I don't want that notion out from the city of Wausau. We want to keep our, even though it may be baked into their business model, I don't think it's good form, and that I'm talking about for myself. So that is
the reasoning, and like I said, I did do my research. I found out all these projects that are possible, if not attached to TID 3 already. So that is my concern. I understand $100,000 is not going to bring down the mill rate. I understand that. I understand all of that, but I have to look ahead of what our critical needs are yet in 2024. And if we need to do that, until we figure out how the reevaluation is going to actually affect people, and it will affect people. I know we want to bring down the mill rate, but I have people in my district that their assessments have doubled. And these are low to middle class people. And they are very, very concerned. They know it's probably not going to double, but any type of increase, along with what our water bills are and stuff, are really putting financial pressure on the people that can't afford it most. So that is the lens I'm looking through with my vote tonight. Thank you.
Alder Gisselman.
Thank you. As I voted for the plan last time, and I will continue to vote for the plan, I think it's an opportunity for us to give a good look at the riverfront from Bridge Street North. Lately, we bought the Dive Point building for what, $200,000, I believe. We spent $1.2 million for the county concrete material, and we spent this money, hopefully, with regard to development and with regard to the prospect for something happening in these properties. And in addition, of course, we have Great Lakes Cheese. And I think in addition to this plan providing us with a fresh look at that, I think this provides us with a fresh look at what might be the potential for the Wassa Chemical Building, Superfund site. I know this is going to be a tricky dealing with, I know that, but I think as soon as we start to look at and start to wrap our heads around what's going to be happening here, I think it's better for this city council and city staff to start to get an idea of what is involved with that. To the south of that is the water treatment plant. The Water Commission the other day had a lengthy discussion with regard to how are we going to proceed with the buildings. Well, I think that as part of this plan, the Water Commission would be having an idea of how to proceed. If the Water Commission proceeds to knock down the building and redevelop it and deal with the contamination and all that, fine. But this plan would present some kind of an idea of how to proceed with that building. And I think that this city council would, as well as the Water Commission, would want to be able to take a look and see what we can be doing. I think it needs a new look, and I think we spent a lot of money in developing it. If it's going to sit, I don't know how the vote will go this evening, but if the veto is sustained, at least bring in some green grass so that the public can have some access to the property. Right now, it's a pretty ugly sight, and I think that we need to do something along the path, along the Wisconsin River. It needs a new look, and I would hope that the city council would not sustain the veto and vote for the plan as presented. I think it gives, like I said before, I keep repeating myself, but I think it gives us a way to be looking at this area that really needs some help and give us some guidance with regard to the treatment plant, the Wassa Chemical, as well as to the properties to the north. So with that, I'll be continuing to vote for the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't suppose planting grass would require the study, but we'll take that under advisement. Thank you. Alder Lukens.
Thank you, Mayor. So I am echoing a number of points of those who voted along with me last time in favor of this. So this actually, the cost of this has already been approved. It was already approved for the 2024 budget. So we are still in that. One thing I really want to make clear too, since I did explain in the article in the Wausau Pilot recently that I did say that this was a vote for the RFP. This was not a vote to spend $100,000. I want to make it very clear that my intent, because integrity is extremely important to me, in no way was my intent disingenuous, because, and it was also not my intent to get a free plan. My intent was merely, I am a teacher, so it was explaining the process, because I think a lot of folks thought that we were voting to spend $100,000. And I was explaining that that's not the case. We're voting to send out the RFP. People could respond. We would have the chance, to look at those. And in fact, the current Economic Development Committee would be the ones, they would have a hand in evaluating the proposals for the final project. But in any case, I just want to make that clear, because I don't appreciate, the implications that my comments were being disingenuous or trying to get a free plan, because that is not at all what it was. So, there are a few comments I'd like to make. So, right, this is from the TID. TID 3, doesn't have anything to do with the taxes. We won't know what the tax rates will be until the fall. I too wondered about doing it in-house. Alder Larson had brought that up, and I was wondering about, the ability, but I've done a lot of research on this. Talked to staff members from a number of different departments, and the analogy for me would be, I'm a reading and writing specialist, and it would be in a way like me being tasked to teach chemistry or a foreign language. That's the difference. Yes, I'm a teacher. Yes, they're teachers, but it's not the same expertise. So that is really important. This is a 12-acre parcel. So and it's not just a 12-acre parcel, but it's along the river. There's railroad tracks. There is, community of residents there. And then also a contaminated parcel. So that is something that I think would definitely be worth hiring a consultant for, because I think that, it's important to get to the people that have the expertise to do that, to ask them to do that. Another thing that was brought up is the multiple needs in the area for that funding, and that is true. There's the Wausau chemical cleanup, the waterworks demolition that was brought up. Maybe that, that could be a part of this plan. The woodchucks parking has been brought up. We do need to do something about that. So again, that we need to do that by the end of 2027. Road construction, utility installation, et cetera, that would all be something that consultants could look at and hopefully give us, I think that, for us, it's important for us to consider, because we're talking millions of dollars. So I think that it would give us a good idea, and that it would be important to get those professional views. The other thing is the residents. Part of this would also be to gather public, stakeholders, neighborhood input to shape the type of development and growth. So, as far as just trying to sell this outright, well, I think, in my estimation, it would be better to have all of this input than sell it to someone who may not have the same kind of concern, and, put some other developer, put something in there where we don't have any kind of say in that. So, another reason would be to protect the city from developments or uses that may be incompatible with public input, despite how wonderful, attractive they are, okay, to the bottom line. So really, to protect the public interest, to give us a say, to give Economic Development Committee a say, and, even the Superfund cleanup, okay, the development of that Superfund site, if we don't hire a consultant to do this, then are we going to be willing to hire a staff member with the specialties in that? It's just that it's such a unique site. There's so many parts to it that I realize, and I'm very conscious of finances. And I realize this is a lot of money. It may not cost the full amount, but there are a lot of things to consider. And lastly, economic development. I think that's one thing, very important thing that I learned in my last term serving on economic development is the importance of that for the tax base. I was just in another state this last week, and I visited, I went through a ghost town, and we really do need it for many things, for our schools, for our tax base. So I am going to vote again I will be voting in support of this and to override the veto, and I really hope that other council members will take all of these reasons into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Alder Larson. Squeeze you in there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to echo what Alder McElhaney had said. I just think it's like why now? With so many other priorities and things facing this city, why now? I spoke with Alder as we were exiting the building last week, and he was talking to me about expertise, and we need expertise and stuff in this. Now, I don't work in economic development. I'm an outsider looking in. I'm a citizen looking in. I haven't seen much of anything in the last 4 years of my council, being on this council. I haven't seen much of any development. And I understand this stuff takes time, but I just haven't seen many successes. And when I say that, why can't, my colleague says, well, we need expertise on this. Well, why can't we have expertise from within our own department? Why can't, like I said, I don't work in this department. I don't see what goes on in there every day. But why can't we have somebody in there learn and become an expert on it? I don't see this as a priority. There's so much more that needs to be done in this city. $100,000 might even fix Short Street, that's in District 3, or that's in TID 3. So I will not be changing my vote either. Thank you. Oh, and one more comment. I don't see this as reported in the newspaper or as what's been discussed about as divisive within this body. This body's been divisive as long as I've been on here. Nobody's, we've always had our challenges. I don't see this as an attack from the mayor's office on this body. And as a matter of fact, Mayor, I want to say thank you for throwing this video out there, because I think, $100,000 for this at this point in time is just wasteful spending. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Henke.
Thank you. I'd just like to start with saying I'd be shocked if every department in the city doesn't hire contractor or consultants. I would be shocked. I'm an engineer in the private world. I have 3 consultants on retainer for the year. I'll use retainer. I like to keep them around when bigger projects come around, because honestly, I'm probably too busy with day-to-day stuff to go and spend the needed time on a big project to make sure it gets done right. It helps to make sure there's another set of eyes on it, because I know a lot, but I don't know everything out there. And then I think most importantly is it eliminates any bias that I might have or that anyone might perceive that I have towards them if I have a third party helping me do a project. Everyone's talked about the money already. This is TID money, so it would be spent in the TID. And until Alder McElhaney started mentioning some of the projects, I had never seen a plan or a vision for this area or what else this money could be used for. So thanks for doing your homework on that. And then I look at this from the outside world, looking at the city of Wausau. Why would a company or a developer or people want to come and invest money and their time in Wausau when we aren't even willing to make a plan for the future of a site? I just don't think that's a good image to project. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am not anti-development at all. I think that developing the downtown mall site area is something that was greatly needed, and I'm thrilled that it's ramping up and moving forward. I think that the River Life apartment building that is not far away from us, that's by WOW and the park that's down there, I think that that's all a very nice area. And I'm not opposed to looking at this in the future. I know we have a duty, a responsibility to grow that tax base for our community, but we also have a duty and a responsibility to show restraint for our constituents. Many of my constituents, when talking to me, are concerned about dollars. They're concerned about city spending. They're concerned about their now property taxes with the new assessment and where they will be. They know it's not going to be what it is, but where will it end up? And so, again, I'm not opposed to this. I'm opposed to this right now. I think we have other promises that we have made as well to the community, many of which Alder McElhaney had expressed when she spoke. So, I don't think that the people who have voted no are opposed to this. I think they're opposed to this at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Watson.
I guess thank you. I guess I would challenge Alders. I mean, I think it's really easy to see what the police does for us, what the fire does for us, what the attorney's office does for us. But I would challenge Alders who are sort of curious what that economic development office does, shadow them, right? And I do think we do outside consultants quite a bit, not to mention the attorney's office again, but we do, consult outside counsel quite a bit on certain issues. Although I know Ann is like awesome, but she needs some assistance. Oh yeah, she can't hear me. So we can say whatever we want about her. No. But I can see a rationale for putting it off. But looking through the packet tonight, I noticed there are a lot of things for proposals. I think the lead line, there was a lead line resolution in here that we had planned $106,000. Now it's going to cost $140,000. So we had to budget another $40,000 to this plan. It's just going to get more expensive as we go. So why don't we do the plan now? I mean, this plan's going to be good for a decade, right? I mean, barring any weird COVID stuff. But I see that there's just I mean, plans go up in price. Why not make this plan so we can have a strategy to go forward? So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alder Lugans.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to speak to, the planning time. I also understand that, you know, it looks like, okay, why now? I understand that too. But I just know, you know, even the school district, like they're planning things long before the actual work is done, because planning, that whole process takes a long time. So just the process of the consulting, you know, to study all of that, that in and of itself, likely 9 months to a year. And, you know, there are these other, you know, these other sites to be developed, but those are ready. Like those, some of them are in process. So it's, you know, if we wait and then we're starting anew later, it's going to take that much longer. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I mean, I see it. I visibly see the lack of development we have here. That has been noticeable in the past number of years. We all know COVID was part of that. But I mean, I go downtown on a weekend and, you know, places are closing at like 3. Seriously, that is not good. And so that whole process, the time part, I guess, is the answer to, not I guess, but it is the answer to the why now. I agree with prices going up, you know, that same thing. And then, you know, again, as far as why can't we do it in-house? So when I worked in law offices, we worked with some, you know, Superfund site issues. And again, that it takes a lot of specialties. No one can specialize in everything. So, you know, another analogy may be an ear, nose, and throat doctor doing brain surgery. And that is in no way a diss on our planners at all. It's just that they have their purview, other people specialize in certain things. So again, it's, as you know, Alder Henke said, consultants. Every department of the city, I'm sure, relies on consultants. And that's really important, because otherwise there are things that, you know, we just don't know about, because no one can cover everything. So, you know, I really hope, I really do understand, but you know, I guess having, the longer I've been on economic development, you know, it's my second term, but I've been doing a lot of learning for a while. And I guess that's where you know, I really have realized the importance of this. So I do hope some alders will reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I guess just one final comment. We know in our city that we have well-documented housing shortage at all rate levels. We are way behind the 8 ball with creating places for people to live. And when that happens, that tends to lower housing costs for many people. New growth in a TID equals new increment equals more opportunity. My guess is that the area that's set to be planned, if we move this forward, likely contains a substantial housing component and a substantial mixed-use component, along with public amenities. We can't even begin, though, to know what's next if we don't at least start this process. Like, get the quotations. Figure out what people have to say as far as what it would cost to plan this area. If it's too much, then we have a future decision to make, and it's our decision to make. At the end of the day, there is a cost to our taxpayers for stagnancy and inaction. Future dollars, every single time, cost more than today's dollars. And so if we know that at some point we want to develop that area and that we want to make a plan for it, do it while the expenditure period for the TID remains open. Now is the time. Leaving that funding sit in a TID first, leaving it sit in there does not cause any tax reduction for anybody outside that TID. The rest of our residents gain nothing from not doing this work, and it's already budgeted for. We need to finish the work that we've started and figure out what's possible for that area, because there is an absolute cost to remaining stagnant and doing nothing. And every time we have come along after a delay and gone to start a project after the fact, it has cost us more money. And this will do that too. It just always, that delay and that inaction, every single time has come to roost, and it's been more expensive for us when we've done that. So I'm hoping that we don't take that stance here.
Thank you. Anyone?
My request to speak doesn't work.
Alder Killian will recognize you. Go ahead.
I just wish to say that I don't consider the mayor's veto an attack on the integrity of this council. I think our mayor has taken a close look at the city currently and what the people are saying and what their concerns are, and I have tremendous respect for that. I agree with Alder McElhaney and Alder Larson and Alder Tierney that we're not against planning. We recognize the importance of planning, but I too don't feel that this is the time. So I will vote as I did before.
Thank you. And if I might just close, Alder Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One other couple different things is, I look at, the remediation of what's needed down there at the Wausau Chemical site. Are we, I think we're definitely jumping the gun because we don't know what can even be put there. Just like, we don't know what can be put on 1300 Cleveland Avenue. That sits stale. There is possible housing and stuff that can go there too, but it can't because it's got to be remediated first. And second of all, I would like the clerk to clarify the vote, what a yes vote would be and what a no vote would be. Would a yes vote be to hold the veto, or a no vote would be against? Would we be voting the same as we did last time?
Yes, it's as though this resolution approving the authorization for request for proposal, you'd vote yes if you want to release the RFP, and you'd vote no if you don't want to release the RFP.
Thank you.
Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. I think we have an opportunity today to look into the future. We're not quite sure what this future will be like, but I think we at least have the opportunity to gather some ideas with regard to what we should be doing with this riverfront. It's not going to, so the plan is developed, the ideas come forth. It doesn't all happen overnight. And when exactly will there be a good time in this city that we decide to take an opportunity to look at this riverfront? You're right. The Wausau Chemical Plant needs a lot of study, you bet. But at least there will be a new 5-year plan for that EPA plan next year. We'll be learning more from that, but at least I think we have to start to thinking about the future here with regard to what we're going to be doing. And if we don't do it now, when are we going to do it? We have an opportunity now. We have an RFP in front of us that explains exactly what we want. And with the water treatment plant, is that we have this sitting on the riverbank. What do we want to do with that? How are we going to approach it? When will there ever be a time in the history of the city that taxes are not an issue? That we fret about $100,000 here, $10,000 there. There's always going to be an issue when we think about spending monies for a plan. But unless we take take that opportunity now. The planning department has developed this plan. There's an opportunity now to glance a little bit into the future of what would be happening, not only to the vacant land that we spent $1.5 million on, but two facilities that will need attention and soon, very soon for this city council. And I think that the opportunity is now, and if not now, when will it be? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, my only regret now is that we didn't budget another hour of our lives for me to respond here, but I'm going to give you just two things. On the disingenuous comment, because I think that came from a newspaper report and a response from me by some questions from the pilot review. So that was not meant specifically at any alders at all. But the thought process of putting out an RFP and not without a potential intention to make good on it. If the cost is too high, we just don't buy one. I think right now we're at a point where we're debating what is that cost and what is too high. I'm setting it at one level. You may be seeing it at a different. As to the comment on procedure and just random acts or attacks, it's part of the council rules and the city ordinances that, for example, that the mayor breaks the tie in a tie vote. So that would be the mayor stepping on the scale in a tie vote. This is part of the procedure. I telegraphed this quite some time ago that I would be looking at spending and trying to be more careful in that, and that's what I did. And then lastly, I've heard several talk about the budget, whether it's budgeted, whether it's TID, whether it's not. It still has that potential to be there. We have money in the Superfund site. We can get some resolution on what that's going to cost looking forward. We can get some information. We've already talked about it in the Water Commission about what to do with the old water treatment plant. Get some ideas of what that's going to be. Get it in the right context. And then if it makes sense and in the context of the 2025 budget, give it another shot. But what I'm saying is, do we need to do this now? And my estimation is no. And that's why I put the veto in. And I think we've heard enough from all of us and me. Are we ready to vote?
Yes. You may begin voting. Again,
Did you answer Mr. Larson's?
Let's, just to clarify, this would be as if you just a reconsideration. It's the same resolution as you voted last time, but it now requires 8 votes to pass instead of 7, if I said that right.
And
Yes.
it's put in the affirmative like they usually are, so you're voting to approve the authorization for a request for proposal. So yes, if you want to release the RFP, no if you don't want to release the RFP.
Sorry, thank you.
motion fails 7-4.
Thank you. Up next, file number 231109P from Finance, resolution approving 2024 budget modifications, additional soil samplings and soil removal for the Riverside Rail Corridor and park remediation. And I have a motion from Lukens. Could I get a second? Second from Martins. Comments, questions? Alder Watson.
I was trying to find it in my packet. I had to switch devices. Did it say it was going to be rate funded? Was this the resolution that the extra funds are coming from rate funding
I've got
as the budget source?
direct DPW here.
Yeah, it's This would, the previous ones had come from the environmental fund,
Okay.
and so that's where these would come from.
Okay.
I don't know if you're thinking about the Able lift station where it's split. That one's
Because I think there was
coming up.
ARPA and then part rate funding, so that
That-
was the
that
lift
was the
station.
lift station,
Okay,
yeah.
I was just trying to find it. Thank you.
Further comments, questions?
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next, file 23-1109Q from Finance, resolution approving 2024 budget modification and the Able Stormwater Lift Station rehabilitation. I have a motion from Lucan, second by Tierney. Questions? Seeing none?
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next, file 23-1109R from Finance, resolution approving and adopting a budget modification for American Rescue Plan Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund funded projects supplement existing lead line replacement study. And that it was approved 3-0 at Finance. I have a motion from Lucan, second by Rasmussen. Questions, comments? Show of hands.
You may begin voting.
I'll vote yeah, mine just changed, so I'm coming back.
You'll vote yes, you said?
Yes.
Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next is suspension. Oh, we got one left here, another finance. 240607, finance resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of up to $12,420,999 water system revenue bonds, Series 2024, and providing for other details and covenants with respect thereto. Motion from Watson, second by Rasmussen. Do we have questions, comments? Seeing none?
You may begin voting.
Yes.
Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next, items requiring suspension of rules. Looking to suspend the rules, Rule 6B, filing, and 12A, referral of resolutions, requires a 2/3 vote.
You may,
Motion from Watson, second by Martins.
you may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next, file 030311 is a resolution reviewing the 2023 compliance maintenance annual report for the wastewater plant. And that came from the Water Commission. Motion by Henke, second by Watson. Questions on that report? We'll put that on file with your vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next, 19, file number 190409, is council resolution terminating Liberation and Freedom Committee. And this came up as one of several committees that have been lingering out there that have not met in some time. And so we looked at, what do we do? Do we reconstitute? Do we refresh? And I'm looking at a couple of them that, depending on how, and the city attorney can comment on how they were created, is how we must dissolve or resolve them. And this is one that, again, it's in the packet, has not met since 2022. It looks like I'm looking for a motion from Larson, second by Henke, and I have Watson with a question.
I have 4 questions and some comments. So I didn't find them listed on the website. Was that because they were pulled previously or they weren't under commissions?
Well, I can tell you that where I discovered it was on the, under duties that Mayor Rosenberg had listed under the mayor's section of the website. I couldn't tell you if that's been changed or not, but it listed neighbor to neighbor, and it listed liberation and freedom. So that's where I noticed it. I can't tell you if we did any.
We deactivated that from the list of the committees because the listing of members was not current. Some of the terms had expired, and so we just felt that it was best to hide that for the moment since it was not up to date.
And so was it just that additional people were not appointed?
No, I believe at the time, Tom Killian was the chair, and I can't speak for him, but I believe he was frustrated that he kept calling meetings, and there were full appointments to that committee, but he could never get enough people to attend a meeting to establish a quorum to discuss anything.
Okay.
And so that last happened in 2022.
Okay. And did it have a standing committee that it reported to?
Yeah, I think it is.
It's an advisory committee to the Common Council.
Okay. I guess I just still feel it's a very valuable committee, and maybe it just needs a facelift and a refresh. Not being on the website, I know it wasn't asked as a selection for committee members or council members to volunteer for as something that they'd want to participate in on the sheet. I don't even know if it's on the application for individuals to volunteer from the community, when they apply to committees. I think it's really important for our strategic plan. One of our goals is cohesive and connected culture. So I think by disbanding this, it would be a misstep on that. Also, I remember on some of the Q&A sessions during the mayoral election, the question that I heard several times come up was, how are you going to continue to hear the marginalized voices and loop in those individuals? And I think disbanding something that would do that is probably not the best idea. So I maybe we sort of lost focus, but I think it's a very valuable commission or committee that could really add to the growing and maybe organization of the committee, or the organizations that are out there, because there's Mosaic, there's NAMI, there's all these different kinds of organizations. But I think the city plays a really important role in that. So I'm not going to vote to disband it. I would really love to see it sort of reinvigorated, refreshed. So thank you.
And just to respond to kind of two things on it, the Neighbor to Neighbor Committee as well has not met since 2020. So that's a committee that I really enjoyed when I was a citizen and I was on. And I thought that there were a lot of things that it did to bring neighbors together. It brings neighborhood groups together. It shares ideas, and it has a possibility to be a welcome wagon type welcoming committee. So that and the original Welcoming and Inclusivity Committee, well, of course, the name had changed a number of times, but so it potentially could be revamped. My thought is, let's bring the one back that I know, well, I don't know, I think we can get participation in since COVID. So that was my thought process on it. Certainly, it's up to you how you want to move forward. And I have Alder Gisselman.
Thank you. I too feel that we should retool this committee. I will be voting against this. I think specifically in this day and age, I think we need more voices on behalf of the city council to be speaking against some of the intolerance that's going on and uplifting, as Alderperson Watson said, the marginalized community. I think that if the mayor reconstitutes it, gives it a refresh, I think that we can set some agendas with that committee to be an active part of combating and educating the citizens of the city of to promote, as earlier resolution said, to promote tolerance and acceptance of all people who choose to reside in the city. The city of Wausau will be a welcoming and inclusive to all residents and visitors alike, no matter their age, race, color, national origin, religion, gender, sexual orientation, disability, or socioeconomic, familiar, or veteran status. And I think we have a long way to go in this community. The last several years of our history has shown that not everything is the way we want it to be. And specifically, recently, I am bothered by the fact that our Jewish neighbors have to feel to call on law enforcement in the city of Wausau that such intolerance is going on. I think there's a large job for this city to step into the void and start providing for some education and providing that sense of tolerance for all people who live in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Neal.
Thank you. Well, back when the original Welcoming and Inclusivity Committee was created, I was a member of that. And the membership of the committee was highly diverse and very community-minded and very active. Oddly, they made me an old white guy chair of the committee to kick it off, but I soon made it known that maybe I'm not the most perfect person for that. I was okay to kind of get them started, but then I wanted to just sit back and let somebody more qualified to address that. You know, the whole idea of it was to address people that are underserved and marginalized in this community, and you know, certainly the work, the goals for that committee have not been reached, and are maybe even greater now than they were then. So there is definitely a need for such a committee in this community. It does bring people together. It opens up a lot of avenues for discussion of some very fundamental things regarding our society here. And so I would definitely say the work is incomplete. You know, we ran into COVID along the way, and I'm sure that affected its ability to function. I think, you know, originally this was an effort brought together by the mayor and certain community people who saw a need and worked together to try and do something about it. So I would think that we should definitely vote against disbanding this committee, terminating it, and instead ask that the administration, pick up the gauntlet and go ahead and do some serious outreach to the community, trying to find new stakeholders, or maybe even some of the old ones, to come back to the table and get back to the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Lugans.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the alders that just spoke ahead of me on all accounts, and I would not like to see this go away. I would like to see it be revamped. I think it's really important, and the spirit of welcoming and inclusivity. And I know and appreciate, Mayor, that you actually spoke out during the campaign about, when the leaflets were being left, and about, tolerance. And so I think that, it would be, I too would appreciate if you would be, somehow able to revamp this, look at how could we, how could this be re-energized, revamped. So I am definitely in favor of keeping this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say before we vote, clarify that the resolution, this is a hyper technicality, but it says terminating the committee. If it had said approving termination of the committee, then it would have been in the affirmative the way you're used to voting, and then you would vote yes if you wanted it terminated. The way it's worded now, you would vote No, if you didn't want it terminated, because we didn't put approving in front of terminating. So after we finish the discussion, just remind everybody when we read it, Caitlin, what yes and no means, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. This committee actually, like we've all said, has gone through a couple of different incantations and different makeup. But I was here and I was the council president at the time when Mayor Milky created this. And it actually started with discussion that we were having about development and growth and creating a climate where people want to live, want to work, want to start or maintain a business, where they feel welcome, where they don't come here and feel like an outsider, where the community is closed and no one wants them. But we were having those discussions in the absence of a strategic plan. We didn't have such a thing at the time. We just knew what we didn't want to be. We knew we didn't want to be a place where people felt like they didn't belong. And we've come a long way since then in the fact that we have created the strategic plan and we've incorporated those core principles of belonging and tolerance and acceptance into that strategic plan. Now, the vehicle by which we get there, I think that we have to incorporate those principles into everything we do in every committee, the way they all operate. We have to lead by example, but I don't know that we need a separate committee to do it. And so when we started down this road, it was more of a holistic view of the city. Like, what image do we want to project? What do we want to create in the minds of people when they are considering Wausau as their home? Somewhere along the line, though, we lost our way a little bit. And so as that committee started to meet, and there was some confusion as to what its mission is, what its authority was, what its work product should be, like what the policy arm of that would be. Like, does it create policy? Does it have the means to change anything? And it became a lot of open-ended discussion about adjudicating individual experiences. We know that we have a lot of work to do with marginalized communities, and we still have work to do with welcoming and diversity. There's no question about that. But I don't know that this was necessarily the effective vehicle. If the mayor was to retool Neighbor to Neighbor and get neighborhood groups to work on initiatives like this also, I mean, we have work to do, but I don't know if this is necessarily the way to get that done. We've tried in the past to pass resolutions, to lead by example, and the effect of that is that we felt great about the fact that we had done it, but at the core of our community, that did not do a lot to change the hearts and minds of individual people. And so people will act the way they're going to act. They'll say what they're going to say, right or wrong, whether or not we like that. And so, I think if we were going to revamp this committee, it really needs to be a larger effort. It needs to be about creating that environment within our community where people feel welcome, wanted, and feel like they belong, but that we can't get too far into the weeds of the mechanics of, individual experiences, because those are some things that we cannot solve. So if we're going to keep it, I think it needs to have its work be very focused and broad. So, at the same time, so there's broad concepts. What kind of a community do you want to be? What image do you want to project? But it's important that they stay on track with that work, and really only that work. Because there was even some confusion with overlap between this and the Diversity Affairs Commission at the county when this all was happening. So, I think that we had good intentions, but I think in a number of ways, its existence muddied the water a little bit too for the work. And the goal really was to create a climate where people want to be. And it was a super simple concept. And then we got so far into the hyper definition of, what we wanted to be that it kind of lost its way by the time it even launched. So if we are not getting rid of it, it definitely needs to be, it needs to have a clear task in front of it for what its role is.
Thank you. Alder Gisselman.
Yes, thank you. Well, the county dismissed the diversity committee. So, I don't understand why they did that. But I think that there's a constant need, and specifically with this city council, to present to the community an avenue for toleration and for getting along with our neighbors. And I don't think it's that difficult, but I think that's one of the education aspects of this city council, and I would think that this is, this retooling of this committee is a good way to start. It would be like you say, a narrow, but it needs to be a broad focus, but yet narrow, and I think we have to continue demonstrating to our community that, what toleration looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Martins.
Thank you. To echo a lot of what Alder Rasmussen said, I remember when this committee was created, and it was in response to the feelings of marginalized citizens not being heard by this body. And that committee was a direct response to that. And I think it was really good intentions, but this committee has been challenged from the beginning in that it's with struggles both internally and externally in order for it to find its way. And I think that might have been overall, the overall arching challenge in how it laid fallow for the last 2 years. I certainly agree that we need a committee like this, especially in light of the county's Diversity Affairs Commission being disbanded. Thanks for reminding me of that, because I think that was a disgrace too. So I would certainly like to see something done with this. I don't know if it's easier to create a new committee or if it is, or to retool this one. I know if we leave this one on the books, then there's going to be an impetus to do something with it. If we dismiss this, terminate this committee, then it's easier just to kind of sweep the whole thing under the rug and move forward. So maybe in the long run, more will get done if we leave this committee stand, and then work can be done to update it, retool it, and move forward in creating a better and more inclusive community, because we need that now more than we did 5 years ago, that's for sure. So I'm gonna not vote to terminate this committee.
Thank you. And just to speak to that, and if we use a word that we learned, or that a vocabulary word tonight is disingenuous. It would be disingenuous for me to continue to let it sit out there and not fill it. So that's part of the reason why it's here. We are going to, if it's going to be on the books, let's genuinely put some positions in there.
Yeah.
So, but starting from zero is where I was sitting. So, just to clarify that, depending on what you want to do, it won't sit fallow if you go the other direction. Alder Neal.
Thank you. Hearkening back to its first days when it was the Welcoming and Inclusivity Committee, I mean, people are, they were still, as they are now, very hung up on labels. Certain words were just verboten. One word that we just fought around here on a couple of fronts was equity. It's a dirty word. That's just a bad word. DIE now is a really bad acronym to a lot of people. When you look at what the words mean, you wonder how can that be? Our society definitely needs work as it's regard to doing better about handling diversity in our society, being more inclusive, achieving equity among people, particularly those who have been muscled out or overlooked. The work has to be done. We can't be afraid of labels. At one point it became the Liberation and Freedom Committee. They went through that themselves, and that's fine, whatever. I don't really care about the name so much as I care about the work and the need for that work. I really, as I mentioned earlier, I would hope to see the mayor and his administration endeavor to connect with the community in an effort to build something that, as Alder Rasmussen mentioned, the word focused, in a focused manner, but I'm not really buying into the idea of, oh, let's just beef up the neighbor-to-neighbor thing. I mean, that's not focused. Unless you have a specific listing of what you're trying to achieve, as it regards to certain elements, of our community that are not being served well or being served badly. There is a need to address that, and I think it should be done in an organized and very transparent fashion. I would hope to see the mayor really reach out into this community and try to contact and engage people who would be interested in something related to the dreaded DIE acronym and what those letters are trying to achieve in our society. So, again, there's definitely a need for this, and I think, to be transparent, it needs to be really well conceived and named and focused, where people understand what it's all about. I don't like the idea of burying it in some broader thing where it just becomes a line item underneath a bunch of others. That's not why the original one was conceived. It was conceived for specific purposes, for specific peoples, and so I definitely want to see it revived. The mayor might decide he wants to give it a different name, but I wouldn't, go, just total white bread with something like, neighbor to neighbor .1 or something. I mean, I want it to be clear to anybody that saw the name of that committee, oh, I can understand what that committee is there for. So this is not a small item. It kind of comes off as being, whatever, it's just a little committee. They haven't been meeting, so let's just, forget about it. No, the work is still there, and I think it's part of our duty and the mayor's duty to get after it. So, thank you.
Thank you. Alder Rasmussen.
Thank you. I agree with Alder Neal insofar as the name is, even though it was selected by the group, tends to be confusing as to the mission. I think the original, first, I don't know that it needed to be the mayor's committee. I think that should have been off a long time ago. But I think in terms of welcoming and inclusivity, if you're trying to educate the community about things like the fact that people's individual experiences may be different than our own, if we're trying to talk about barriers to equality, if we're trying to talk about tolerance and acceptance, that really is a welcoming and inclusivity type initiative, and Liberation and Freedom kind of skews that, because I think when that name changed, people, that's when people were confused about what it was trying to actually achieve. What goal was it trying to get to? I think when we started out, we were kind of looking at something akin to what ended up becoming Toward One Wausau. I guess if anyone remembers that, like, we wanted to be one community where everybody feels valued, where they want to stay, they want to be, and they're just not looking to find ways to break into something where the closed sign is up. And so, the UW took over the Toward One Wausau work, and they had more measurable success with it as far as education than we ever had with this. And so I don't know if any of this would be duplicative of the work that they did or continue to do if they continue to have the program. I think I've seen recently that they do continue to have some curriculum and programs that are surrounding that initiative. But that's where retooling, if it's retooling, it really needs retooling. Like, the original mission was sound, and the original name wasn't even that bad, but that's where I was saying we got off the tracks and we stayed off the tracks. So, if we're going to keep it, we really have to do something different.
Thank you. So let's just review the vote.
So a yes vote, if you vote yes for this, you would be terminating the Liberation and Freedom Committee. If you vote no on this vote, you would be retaining it or keeping the Liberation and Freedom Committee. So you may begin voting. So if you're voting yes, you are terminating the Liberation and Freedom Committee. If you vote no, the Liberation and Freedom Committee, you want it to stay. The vote fails 1 to 10. So the committee stands.
All right, so I've got some work to do. Thank you. Up next, 080917 from the Finance, resolution approving parking lot and lease land lease North First Street Holding Company LLC and First Wausau Tower parking stall lease agreement for the properties 520 614 North First Street, parking lot number 15. I have a motion from Watson, second from Lukens. Alder Martins.
And I just wanted to say that this was approved in finance earlier this evening, a unanimous vote approving both the contracts for the land lease and the stall rent.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. I failed to mention that. Thank you. Any other comments? And we can vote.
You may begin voting. Motion passes 11 to 0.
Up next, public comment and suggestions. Anyone? Hello? Thank you. And finally, I'll take a motion to adjourn by Watson, second by Henke. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so 8:31. It's still, but we didn't have the. Okay. Okay. Okay.